Hello everyone, and thanks for tuning in to our latest ENSO/El Nino update. So it's been a little while since we've done an ENSO update, but interesting developments are taking place in the Equatorial Pacific. We are on El Nino watch. There is a possibility that we might have an El Nino setting up through this summer and lasting into the autumn and winter 2023-2024. And so I'm going to bring you an update with all of the latest developments with an ENSO and El Nino and whatnot. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. And I shall talk you through that in a moment. Just to say that if you're enjoying the content on the channel at the moment, then please can you like, share, and subscribe. And if you show everybody for doing that, you'll be able to see future weather content, including future updates about El Nino, La Nina, and the general ENSO state and whatnot, if you do that. So thank you so much, everybody. Right, okay, let's crack on with the vid then. We're going to start off at the cold and warm episodes by season page from CPC, NCP, and also NOAA. This is showing all ENSO events in tri-monthly periods going right way back to 1950. So you can see that as we began 1950, we had a La Nina indicated by those minus blue numbers there. That reversed to ENSO neutral through the winter of 1950-1951, albeit ENSO neutral on the cold side. And then an El Nino indicated by these red positive numbers took off through the second half of 1951 and into 1952. So red is El Nino, warm event. Blue is La Nina, cold event. Now let's come down to the latest year, 2023, sorry. And you can see that we begin the year with La Nina. It's been a very long La Nina, actually. It started in 2020. That's the first La Nina winter, 2020-2021. Reversed very briefly in the middle of 2021 back to ENSO neutral. And then the second of the triple dip took off through 2021-2022, with those minus blue numbers appearing once again. Actually, 2022 throughout the whole year was a La Nina year. So right from beginning to end, we see those blue numbers. We don't go to ENSO neutral at all in the whole year of 2022. And that lasts into the beginning of 2023. So the third year, the triple dip, was 2022-2023. You can see we have now gone back to black. Here we go. We've returned to ENSO neutral for the tri-month period of January, February, and March, telling us that La Nina has ended. And so now we wait to see where we're going to go from here. Now, typically what happens after a La Nina is that you will revert for the following year and winter to ENSO neutral, but not always. That's not always the case. For example, we can see 2017-2018 did have a weak La Nina. That reversed to ENSO neutral for a while, and then we get in the following winter, 2018-2019, a very weak El Nino event developing. So sometimes you can revert from La Nina to El Nino within the following year. More often, though, is what happened in 2012, 2013, or 2011, 2012, really. So you can see that in 2011, most of the year is La Nina. That's a double dip La Nina that we had that time, 2010, 2011, 2012. In the middle of 2012, that reverts to ENSO neutral. And that's where we stay at ENSO neutral throughout 2012 and into 2013. It wasn't actually until 2014, 2015 that we had our next weak El Nino event. Now, while in 2012 it did look as though we might go from La Nina, as we had at the start of the year, straight into an El Nino event. You can see that we did get quite close to El Nino threshold. Remember, to get to the threshold, you've got to be either half a degree above, 0.5 degree above for El Nino, or 0.5 degree below, half a degree below average for an El Nino or a La Nina. And you have to do it over 5 tri-monthly periods as well. You can see that we did almost reach El Nino threshold on a couple of those tri-monthly periods through the latter part of the summer of 2012, July, August, September, October, just 0.1 degree off that 0.5 degree threshold, but it wasn't sustained, and the attempt at El Nino actually collapsed, and winter 2012-2013 went into an ENSO neutral winter, albeit on the cold side. As if there are other examples where we go straight from El Nino to La Nina with a little bit of an ENSO neutral in between. 1976, a good example of that. And that's a triple dip La Nina as well. So the first La Nina is 73-74. The second La Nina is 74-75. And similar to 2022, actually, 1975 was the La Nina year throughout the entire year, and the third of the triple dip was at 75-76 there. Reverts to ENSO neutral through the middle months, through the summer months, spring and summer months of 1976, and then goes into an El Nino before the end of the year through the autumn of 76 and into the winter of 76-77. We have a weak El Nino event. So, you know, it can happen that within the year, if we go from La Nina to El Nino, but it is quite unusual. Most often, we will go from La Nina to ENSO neutral for like winter, and then we may go into El Nino the next year, or, you know, stay at ENSO neutral and whatnot. Anyway, this is the latest sea surface temperature anomaly map from NOAA. So this is the area we're interested in, of course, from Peru to Indonesia. This is the Equatorial Pacific Ocean. So you can see that we've still got a little bit of a legacy of a La Nina left with a central part of the Equatorial Pacific Ocean just here. We've reverted to near normal, near neutral ENSO levels on either side, or we at near normal levels. On either side, it's warmer, particularly over here in the eastern part of the Equatorial Pacific Ocean. We're up to 5 degrees above average off the coast of Peru. And you can see how this warmth actually extends down the coast of Chile as well. So one of the clues to working out where the next ENSO event is going to go is what's happening off the coast of Chile. If you're very warm off the coast of Chile, then often you get an El Nino following. If you're quite cold off the coast of Chile, then very often you'll get a La Nina cold event following. So clearly we've left La Nina behind. There's no two ways about that. Just a little bit of a legacy of that left around here. And it does look as though the eastern portion of the Equatorial Pacific Ocean is starting to move towards a La Nina type setup. Subsurface temperature anomalies are looking like this. Let's try and zoom in on this a little bit, shall we? So this is how things are looking at depth in terms of the actual Equatorial Pacific Ocean. So with this, you have to think that this is like the surface of the Equatorial Pacific Ocean here. So you will have Peru over here. You'll have Indonesia over there. So that's where the warmest of waters are amassing off the coast of Peru near the surface. But you can see there is a large body of warmer than average subsurface temperature anomalies at depth there, between around 100 and 250 meters, something like that, in the central and western part of the Equatorial Pacific Ocean even. Let's quickly refresh that so you can see the latest. So this is showing how the subsurface temperature anomalies are developed right away from February. So you can go all the way from February to the 13th of April. When we get to 13th of April, I will stop it. Notice how the warmer than average subsurface temperature anomalies are expanding here at depth. It does look rather La Nina-esque, I have to say this. You can see how these warmer than average subsurface temperatures from around 100 to 250 meters at depth in the central and western part of the Equatorial Pacific Ocean are actually feeding in and kind of supporting the warmest of the anomalies, which is right over there in the eastern portion of the Equatorial Pacific Ocean. So it does look as though we are shifting there into La Nina type pressure. Including since February, there has been a very significant warming of the Equatorial Pacific Ocean at both the surface and at the subsurface level and at depth, which does look a little bit like El Nino is on the way. Sun Oscillation Index is an index that's reflecting the atmospheric state in the South Pacific Ocean. So it's measuring air pressures between Darwin and Tahiti. We have a negative SOI. You will have a atmospheric setup that is reflective of El Nino. We have a positive SOI. You have an atmospheric setup that is reflective of La Nina. See, we are negative now with our 30-day average. That's the red line just here. I'll talk about that in a moment. Let's have a look at the daily returns. So we're mixing or changing between positive and negative. So, for example, on the 1st and the 2nd of April here, we're at minus 13 and minus 19. That's a very accurate setup that is strongly reflective of El Nino. However, on the 6th and 7th of April, the atmospheric setup is strongly reflecting La Nina at plus 12 and also at plus 23 as well. The 8th of April, really strongly reflective of La Nina at plus 33.74. However, recent days have gone negative again at 14th of April at minus 9, 15th of April at minus 9, 16th of April at minus 12, and 17th of April at minus 7. And so, if you have a look at the 30-day average, you can see that is actually in weekly negative territory here. The red line shows that in middle of March, we're at 0. And that's about where we are now. We did drop down to minus 4 with the SOI 30-day average around the turn of the month. The 90-day average, which doesn't move around as much because it's a 90-day average rather than a 30-day average, is also coming down has come down quite significantly from around plus 12 here in the middle of March to plus 6. Most recently. So it looks like the atmospheric setup is beginning to move into an El Nino type setup, albeit not consistently so. To get an El Nino spiraling off, we've got to get the atmospheric setup and also the ocean to couple up with one another. It looks like the ocean wants to produce an El Nino event based on most sea surface and subsurface temperature anomalies. However, the atmospheric setup is not yet there to really couple up. But it's very early days. It's only April, and it's likely that these events, won't really take off until the summer and into the autumn. Let's have a look at some forecasts. So this is CFS V2. Now, CFS has done very well over the last 2 or 3 years with the La Nina. We don't really rate the CFS all that highly. We do give it a lot of stick. The old can't forecast so model. However, its ENSO forecasts for the last 2 or 3 years have proved very, very good in terms of triple dip La Nina. They can see a big change being predicted by CFS through this year. So we've got a temperature on the side, a sea surface temperature on the side, and dates in monthly periods are along the bottom. You can get all the way to January 2024 with this. We're starting off at ENSO neutral on the slightly positive side. The black dashed line shows that the CFS is forecasting that we lift up into an El Nino event by the beginning of the summer in the central part of the Equatorial Pacific Ocean, and that strengthens through the year. So by the time we get through to around November, we've actually got a super Nino, it's what we call a super Nino going on at around 2.5 degrees above average. That's a very strong El Nino, but CFSB2 is predicting there. Looks a little bit over the top, I have to say, but, as I say, the CFS have done pretty well over the past several years with these, with the La Nina events we've had over the last 3 years. But definitely, CFS is forecasting an El Nino event, and actually is looking at into Super Nino type threshold above 2 degrees above average, 2.5 degrees above average. What about some other models? Well, this is the ECMWF from Copernicus. You can see that is also predicting El Nino. So again, we're starting off around here, ENSO neutral on the slightly positive side. By the time we get through to the autumn, we're in here, which is kind of like 2 to 3 degrees above average generally with the ensemble plume. So that's going into either strong or super Nino territory from the ECMWF as well. This is how Meteo France is forecasting. It's maybe not quite as strong with the El Nino prediction with this model. It's more sort of moderate to strong thresholds. Just about get super Nino with that. Outlier temperatures there. And this one keeping things at ENSO neutral. Generally, most of the ensemble plume with Meteo France is in the moderate to strong El Nino threshold, but a little bit short of a super Nino. That's DWD. This one also a little bit more toned down, but going for an El Nino. Again, the ensemble plume, the thrust of the ensemble plume is through there. So, like around, what do you think about sort of 1 degree to 2 degrees above average. So that's like a moderate to strong El Nino type threshold being predicted by DWD. And then the JMA, the Japanese Meteorological Agency model, is like this. So quite a spread really with the JMA. So these ensemble plume elements down here are like weak El Nino to moderate El Nino, and then these ones up here are moderate to strong to potentially just about getting Super Nino type threshold. But there's a big spread, big spread with the JMA. And then the UK Met Office looks like that. Again, you see quite a big spread from the UK Met. These ones down here, these ensemble plume elements down here, I keep things at ENSO neutral or just a very weak El Nino condition. From there to there, that's where the thrust of the plume is. So that's either ranging from like weak to moderate El Nino all the way up to strong to almost Super Nino type threshold at the strong. So I suppose if you was to take central prediction with that, which will probably be through here, that would be like moderate to strong El Nino being predicted by the UK Met. So all the modelling is going for an El Nino. The debate is about how strong that El Nino is going to get. That's where the uncertainty is, but they are all going for an El Nino. I just want to go back to the sea surface temperature anomaly map, and I want you to cast your eyes northwards to this area of colder than average sea surface temperature anomalies up here from like Alaska, around the Canadian coast, around the west coast of the States, and then out into the eastern part of the northern Pacific Ocean. Those colder than average sea surface temperature anomalies there are reflective of what we call a negative PDO. We've got a cold negative Pacific decadal oscillation at the moment. Now, normally when you get very strong El Ninos, Super Ninos, and whatnot, normally what has to happen for that is that you will have, yes, the El Nino through the Equatorial Pacific Ocean, but you also have it warmer up here. Now, what's going to happen is that as the El Nino gets going, it is going to try and strengthen, but it will be fighting against these cold and average sea surface temperature anomalies that are feeding in from the north. So it's quite unusual to get like a Super Nino with a negative PDO. This is showing the PDO phase, Pacific Decadal Oscillation phase, all the way back to 1854. So the blue spikes, or blue bars, I suppose, are the cold. It's a cold PDO years, and the months, and the red bars, or red spikes, are the warm PDO years. So we can go way up to March 2023. But you can see that lately we have been in a cold Pacific Decadal Oscillation after going through a warmer PDO, a few years ago. So if we have a look at a year that had like a Super Nino, which would be 1997, you can see that that very much had a warm Pacific Decadal Oscillation. It's this period just here. Where are we? Lost it. So it's this period just here. Now you see the Pacific Decadal Oscillation was generally quite warm during that Super Nino period. And what about in 1983 when we had another Super Nino? So that's just here, 82, 83. There were a few cooler years then around 82, 83, but generally the PDO is in a warmer scenario during that Super Nino. And what about the most recent Super Nino, which would of course be in 2015-16, and that's this period just here. And again, you can see that during 2015-16, the PDO is also in its warm phase there. So I've got a feeling probably the models are overdoing this, because it is quite unusual, to be so cold with Pacific Decadal Oscillation and to go into a Super Nino. But you can get El Ninos, of course, with a colder than average PDO. So I wouldn't say we're not going to have an El Nino event, but I'd be surprised if it takes up into Super Nino. Of course, it may do. I could be wrong about that, but It is quite unusual. So again, just to focus on this area of this cold average area sea surface temperature anomalies up here and around there with cold PDO. That's kind of similar to what you had in 2012. I talked about that at the start of the video. You can see that in the middle of April 2012, we do see quite a significant warming of the Equatorial Pacific Ocean in the eastern portion of the coast of Peru. Not quite to the same extent that we got this year, but we do see quite a significant warming of the eastern portion of the Equatorial Pacific Ocean there in April 2012, and that's where the idea came from in 2012, that we was going to have an El Nino for 2012 and in 2013. You see how that's fighting against the cold PDO signature that we've got up here. And what actually happened is that, as I said at the start of the video, the El Nino collapsed in the end, and we stayed at ENSO neutral condition. 2009 is a good example of an El Nino, not Super Nino, but moderate strong El Nino that occurs with a cold PDO. So again, you see this colder than average sea surface temperature lines up here, and then you see the signature of El Nino through here. So you can sometimes get an El Nino, yes, with with a cold PDO type phase, and I've got to think that's probably where we'll go with this. I've got to think we probably will go into El Nino, because that is a very, very significant warming that we see there massing at the eastern portion of the Equatorial Pacific Ocean. We know that at depth it's well supported by warm and average sea surface temperature lines as well. But I will be quite surprised if this develops into a very strong or a super Nino so soon after 2015-16 as well. It seems a little bit unlikely to me that that will happen. So I would imagine we will probably go to moderate El Nino threshold, but we'll wait and see. We're certainly on El Nino watch, and it will be interesting to see how this all resolves itself. Of course, so obviously we're going to keep you updated. We're going to be talking about this on study roundups over the next few months. And when we get into our winter update, because of course El Nino, ENSO, El Nino and La Nina are primarily winter drivers, actually, and because that's where they're strongest, so their effects will primarily be felt through the latter part of the autumn and into the winter. So when we start the winter updates in September, at the beginning of September, and run them through the autumn, obviously this will be a very significant player within those winter updates, and so it's always an important part of winter updates, and I would imagine this year will be no exception. So we're all eyes on the Pacific, and we'll keep you informed. But for ENSO or El Nino watch for this month, that's all for now. As I say, please like, share, and subscribe if you've enjoyed this video, and make sure you tell your friends and family to subscribe as well. You'll be able to see future weather content if you do that, and we will keep you updated on all things El Nino related. Right, for this one though, that's all for now, and thank you so much for watching. Bye for now.